This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
Ladies and gentlemen, long time no talk. This is episode 68 of Top Rope Nation. Hopefully you guys tuned in earlier this week, just a couple days ago actually, when we put up the first edition of the Patreon exclusive Top Rope Nation's Classic Show, where we reviewed SummerSlam 91. We actually posted that for everyone, so you can check that out on our podcast feed and tune into what we're doing with our classic content and get all the exclusive content moving forward at patreon.com/TopRopeNation. But we're here tonight with the flagship Top Rope Nation, episode 68, to talk about all the current events going on in the world of pro wrestling. I'm Ryan Drossi, joined here by Justin Joint, Kyle Ross. We're going to be breaking down all the news that's been coming at us this week, which started out kind of on a negative note, obviously, on Sunday with the untimely deaths of Nikolai Volkoff and Jerry Lawler's son, Brian Lawler. So we're going to be getting to that here in just a few moments. I do want to say, if you enjoyed the show, take a minute to subscribe on iTunes. Check out our whole catalog at topropenation.com, wherever podcasts are found. And throw us a follow on Twitter at Top Rope Nation. So guys, before we get into like TV and just some of the newsworthy events that have been happening this week with WWE and in just the world of wrestling in general, we got to mention, I think first off, Nikolai Volkoff, who I think I heard about his death second on Sunday. What happened with Brian, formerly known as Brian Christopher, kind of hit the waves first. But Nikolai Volkoff, one of the big stars in the WWF in the 1970s, and then of course when the WWF exploded in the 80s, a massive star. Passed away. He was like 70 years old, I think. Yeah, 70 years old. So. Kyle, your first thoughts on Nikolai Volkoff and his career, and what was your reaction when you heard about the two deaths over the weekend?
My first thought is I hope that our listeners can have no appreciation of how quickly you transition from us talking and prepping for the show until we actually go to the real show. I always feel like I'm still laughing when the show starts about something.
And I just start right in.
Yeah, you just start like, whoa, okay, I guess we're going.
Pro's pro right there.
But Nickel, we should mention there were actually three with Brickhouse Brown. We should mention that too.
Yes.
I know he's not if you're younger, that name may not mean as much, but we should certainly mention that. But with Nikolai Volkoff, I think people have, I know I'm the oldest of the three here on the show, but we're all relatively the same age. I think if you started watching wrestling in the mid to late 80s, Nikolai Volkoff was kind of obviously a very one of the first names you knew about in terms of understanding what a heel is when you're a little kid. I think he was one of the easier ones to grasp. Like it was just a very easy. He came out. He was Russian. He sang the Russian national anthem. It was a big deal. Obviously, people remember it. I mean, it was covered by ESPN. I mean, it's still surreal to me to see these wrestler deaths get covered on ESPN.com. He was in the cartoon, so which always is like a thing that people note when they were in the Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling cartoon. Mm-hmm. And that kind of made you a made guy from that era. The tag team with the Iron Sheik is something obviously everyone's going to remember. However, it was simple and very effective. They won the tag team titles at the first WrestleMania. Wasn't the greatest wrestler of all time. I know this probably isn't the place to say that. It can come off as crass. I don't want to be like Lance Storm with some of his tweets when we get to Brian Lawler. That was kind of out of line. But I don't know. I don't really. He was somebody, I guess, that just an iconic heel from that era.
Yeah, and not the greatest technical wrestler, but a great character.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's funny, a lot of gimmicks today, the Attitude Era more so, but they were like fad gimmicks that kind of had an expiration date on them, if that makes sense. Nikolai Volkoff is, kind of like the heel equivalent of a Jim Duggan, where he could have brought that gimmick to an indie show last week and it would have worked.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, that says something about the guy.
Yeah, for sure. Justin, what do you remember from your childhood about Nikolai?
Just the heat that singing, the Russian national anthem would get, especially that, I can't remember which WrestleMania, but one of the WrestleMania ones certainly opened my eyes to it. And yeah, I totally agree with Kyle. It's a pretty timeless gimmick. I'm just maybe concerned or curious if it was maybe if Vladimir Putin had anything to do with his death, or
oh come on, no.
Oh no. Yeah, we can always rely on Justin to lighten the mood for us here. As we're talking here, I'm kind of looking up Nikolai's match history, and kind of interesting to note, he wrestled 4 years ago. His last match, Heroes and Legends 3 against Bobby Steele.
It's funny, you mentioned the Heroes. He was, of course, part of that infamous Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view in 1999 that I think everyone involved would just as soon rather forget.
The Bushwhackers against him and the Sheik, Iron Sheik, rekindling the tag team.
Yeah, that sounds like a C-show main event from 1988 as well. Yeah, I mean, it's something else people forget. He came over as part of Black Saturday, he came back to the WWF as part of Black Saturday. That's kind of an interesting tidbit too. And David Vixen's band shared an interesting thing from Fred Blassie, who was the manager, obviously, of the Sheik and Volkoff team. His biography about Nikolai, who was Croatian, he was not of Russian descent. About Nikolai kind of like, well, how do I do this gimmick? And it was really interesting. If you want to go search that tweet, I don't have it in front of me, but it was a pretty cool story about, initially Volkoff, when he was trying to find his way to the gimmick, he brought up something very real life, like the Americans bombing some country and how terrible it was. And people were like, ugh. And Nikolai's was basically people, wrestling's an escape. People don't want to hear, something that real. And while, U.S.-Soviet relations are still very real, I think he was able to do it in a way that, it didn't touch a nerve. It was just very easy to boo, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
Because, in the 1980s, you just booed the Russians is what it was the height of xenophobia.
Yeah.
That's how Rocky got over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he stuck around for a long time, man. Face Nikolai Volkoff, I will say, is not my favorite thing of all time. whether it was his turn in 1990 or when he came back with the cent sign as part of the $1 Million Corporation, people forget that. He was actually the first member of Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation. And also, here's a bit of trivia that you may not remember: the famous Bret Hart 1, 2, 3 Kid match from Monday Night Raw in '94.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3 Kid, do you know how he got that title opportunity?
Defeating Nikolai Volkoff a couple weeks earlier, I would assume.
In a number one contenders match.
Yeah, June 20th, 94. Yep, June 20th, 94. I see it now in his match history. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just it's crazy looking at his match history, because he was relatively active there in 94 with that run with the WWF when he came back, and then he wrestles CZW in 99, the Heroes of Wrestling show that you mentioned in 99. Then comes back for that gimmick battle royal, WrestleMania X7. Mm-hmm. Does another World Wrestling Legends show in 06. Wrestled on Raw in 2008. And then his last match in 2014 at that Hero and Legends 3 event. So
I really it sounds terrible. And this is I think people need to check themselves with things like star ratings. I'm trying to when I was thinking of, before we went live here, the show, I was all right, what is the Nikolai Volkoff match I could recommend? And I kind of am struggling still with it. I guess it would be the title change at the first WrestleMania when they beat Barry and Rotunda.
He had a pretty
for the tag titles.
high profile feud with Bruno too. I don't know, any matches don't like come
Yeah,
off the top
that
of my head,
was in the initial run. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I mean he is a huge star and was around when wrestling really exploded in the 80s. So
what do we think about ESPN? I mean, like, it's crazy to me. Like, I remember Randy Savage. That death was covered pretty heavily by ESPN.com. And Randy Savage is obviously one of the biggest stars in the history of professional wrestling. And, when I say that now, I think a lot of people would be like, well, of course, ESPN would mention Randy Savage. But, like, it really says something about that era that, because we saw the same thing with Piper, obviously. And I think it does speak to Nikolai Volkoff that he was covered. I mean, I really think if I wanted to, put over his career, I think, honestly, the fact that his death was covered by ESPN.com is one of the, nicer things I could say. I mean, it speaks to kind of his impact.
Yeah.
That, a quote unquote legitimate, and I know people have their problems with ESPN, certainly I do, but, that they would cover something like that. They would cover him in that manner.
Yeah, I think ever since they launched their WWE section, there's obviously a much bigger chance they're going to cover pretty much any death of anyone that's like WWE linked.
Well, yeah, but I think it's specifically from that era. I mean, there are deaths in the industry that they don't cover, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the way I look at it though is
did they cover Brian Christopher?
I don't know. I didn't look. I can look here in just a second. I was just gonna say though, like if they covered a wrestler's death 10 years ago, it shocked me a lot more than it does now, just because they have the wrestling section. Which, by the way, Kyle, your boy Jonathan Coachman takes credit for the WWE section on ESPN.com. If he wouldn't have broke through to the higher ups to cover pro wrestling, that would not be happening. If you ask the coach, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I referenced David Dixon's span a few minutes ago. I'm on Team Bix in his feud with the coach.
That was bad. Yeah,
the coach is a very bad. I'm sorry. Like, I know it's like, what show have you announced? I haven't. Okay, I'm sure it's a hard job, but like at the same time, as a consumer of a product, I'm allowed to have opinions. That's like something like the Eric Bischoffs of the world don't really understand. Like, okay, fine, you were there, but I'm watching and am allowed to have an opinion. And, my opinion with Jonathan Coachman is he stinks as a professional wrestling announcer. Like, very bad. Like, he's very bad.
To answer your question about Brian Christopher, I'm not seeing anything on ESPN.com, but there was an article on CNN.com about him.
Wow. And I'm seeing also their affiliates had things about Brian Christopher. ESPN's like, kind of like, ESPN Orlando and things like that had things, but not the main site. So,
yeah. Before I forget, Kyle, you did mention Black Saturday when you were talking about Nikolai and when he came over to the WWF in his second run, I believe. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other topic we could get into. But for those of you who don't know what that is, it was basically when Vince McMahon achieved the rights to television on Saturday mornings, where Georgia Championship Wrestling had previously aired on TBS. So all the Georgia
and they just added that to the network.
Yes.
In the Hidden Gems.
Yep. So all the GCW fans had tuned in that morning, and they were welcomed by Vince McMahon's smiling face. It's a big story in 1980s pro wrestling television history. So that's something maybe we could run down on the Patreon show sometime. Top Rope Nation Classics. There's an idea. So you want to hear that one? Top Rope Nation on Patreon, patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. So Brian Christopher, now most of our listeners are all going to be familiar with him just because his run was so much more, well, I say more recently. God, it's almost been 20 years now. But the whole story with Too Cool, him, Scotty Too Hotty, Rikishi, was a big deal around 2000 or so. Wrestling was super popular, and they always got the crowd going. So he was never like a main event headliner, although he did get one run, I think, with the WWE Tag Team titles. With Scotty Too Hotty as Too Cool, and of course the son of the legendary Jerry the King Lawler. And I was talking with Derek Chappelle, friend of the pod, down there in Memphis, who kind of grew up watching
Hi,
Brian
Derek.
Lawler. Been a while since we've given Derek a shout out, but he's a strong supporter of the show. I know he's listening. And we were kind of talking the other day about just what a sad turn of events and what Brian's life had become, because if you look at his early run in Memphis, he was a whole different character than anyone ever saw on the WWE stage. A much more serious, top babyface character, and obviously his lineage, his family lineage helped there. But this was a kid with a ton of promise. He had, like we said, he had the pedigree. He was super talented, really connected with those Memphis fans, and what's happened with his life in the last couple of years has really been sad to watch unfold. It was not in a good place, obviously. There was some violence charges around him a couple months ago, and then he was being held in prison for drunk driving / running from the cops in early July. And apparently he was in jail, tried to hang himself, and died several hours later from injuries from the suicide attempt. So it's very sad. Of course, condolences out to the whole Lawler family. But this is kind of, Justin, I know when we became friends, this was right around the time Too Cool was kind of at their heyday. And so were you a fan of the act there in 2000, 2001?
No. I liked Scotty's Worm. That was about it. Mm-hmm. It was just a little bit too hokey for me. And there was too many other guys that I wanted to see. By guys, I mean like characters, wrestlers that I wanted to see succeed. And it was just a little too cheesy without actually being funny like Edge and Christian.
Are you telling me that not everything in the Attitude Era was incredible?
I would say about 75% of it was not incredible.
Wow. I cannot believe you're saying that. No. Yeah, we've been pretty vocal of our criticism of the Attitude Era on this show. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I didn't look this up or anything, but I'm just going off memory. Didn't he come in as part of the Cruiserweight division?
Yeah, the light heavyweight division it was at the time.
The WWE light heavyweight, that's right.
Yeah, he was the foil for Taka.
That's
who
right.
they were going to build the division on, and that did not work. He was just not a fit. But it's a testament that he stuck with it, because he was kind of DOA on the roster for most of 98, 99 until they hit that Too Cool gimmick. And I'm kind of with Justin. It wasn't necessarily my favorite thing, and it certainly, you knew it had an expiration date. But I'm just going to make a statement right now that is absolutely correct. In early 2000, they were more over than the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and Dudleys for those first 6 months. Now, those three teams all lapped them eventually, as we know. But Too Cool was ungodly over at the beginning of 2000. That Dallas 10-man that they were a part of.
For the first how many months?
I would say first 5 to 6 months.
No, I mean, as soon as WrestleMania 2000 was done, I mean,
I don't know. Too Cool beat Edge and Christian. I mean, they were super over, man. I mean, if you go back, they were like, I would say that for the first half of 2000, I would. But they were right there. I mean, it kind of, once they lost the tag titles back to Edge and Christian, it kind of started waning. But I think they were more popular than those teams at first.
Wasn't at No Mercy in the fall of '99 though, when the ladder match with Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys?
It was.
I'd have to say they were above Too Cool, but Too Cool was right there.
I mean, Too Cool was in the. You talk about being in the main event. I mean, they were in. I mean, they were ungodly over in that 10-man tag.
Yeah, they were on the house.
Like a main event feud, and they were the ones who feuded with the Radicals when the Radicals came in.
Yeah, that's right. They were on a house show here in Iowa at the Dome in 2000, and there was like 18,000 people I think at that house show, and they were legitimately one of the most popular acts on that show. This was in like just a couple weeks before Mania 2000,
and a lot of it wasn't just them. I mean, it was Rikishi too. It was the whole pack. I mean, people were talking about in that Royal Rumble 2000. I mean, not like just some spamool with the blog, but people who I respected, that Rikishi would be a main eventer by SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were if you watch the January and February TV of 2000, I mean, they were freaking over like Rover, man.
I'd say if I had to pick a team from that period, though, I'd say the Hardys were number one. I mean, they were, man.
Well, they were
moved
more
a lot
long lasting. I mean, yes, I just think that like there was a short period where Too Cool, I think, was a little more over. But obviously, by 2001, it was a no contest. And speaking of 2001, it shocked me when I was researching. Christopher was gone by 2001, and Jim Ross, right before he resigned as the head of talent relations, did try to hire him back, but that didn't last long. And other than a couple, one-offs on Raw, he never came back and worked with the company again.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked that it was sort of over that quick.
Yeah. So I was trying to look up when his last match was, as far as the Internet Wrestling Database.
I think it was. I guess I was thinking WWE. 'Cause, him and Scotty had a match in NXT. I think in 2014 against the Ascension.
Yeah, February 2014 NXT Arrival, and they were on Raw like a month before that. So, yeah, since 2014, according to this website, he had only wrestled 2 times. That can't be right, is it? I don't know. That's all they have on his match history, at least. So. They have a match in Rev Pro in 2014 and Maryland Championship Wrestling in 2014. So,
once Rikishi turned heel, which was sort of ill-fated for those who remember that, the "I did it for my people" angle. Too Cool was kind of left out to hang out to dry, and it did, like I said, have an expiration date, and they just kind of faded away.
Yeah. So condolences out to the families. A lot of sadness.
His best work overall though is clearly in Memphis though.
Yeah. No doubt.
Against Jeff Jarrett and stuff like that.
Yep. All right, so let's get to WWE and what's been going on this week. We talked a lot of WWE the other day, but that was 1991 WWE. So let's fast forward to 2018. So Raw and SmackDown this week. We were talking off air. I think SmackDown was the better show. But Raw was interesting at the close and at the start. I did like that opening segment with Roman and Paul Heyman. I thought Roman was getting a strong reaction right from the start from that crowd in Miami, saying that Brock was going to be going back to UFC as Roman Reigns' bitch. That was a good line.
That was good. It was.
The crowd loved it, but Brock... It's kind of like the king of the memes on Monday night, as you've all seen. He's looking at magazines throughout the show backstage, and
I liked our good friend Liam O'Rourke photoshopping his book, Crazy Like a Fox.
I did see that one. Yes. Yeah, that was good. So Brock was just backstage for most of the show till the very end, when we did finally get, as part of that closing segment, a "We Want Roman" chant. So we're getting close to the fans getting behind Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. And then what happened, Kyle?
Well, hold on. Well, I just want to point out that "We Want Romans" chant, it was a little bit higher pitched voices.
Hey, the dollar bills are all the same.
It's not a monolithic audience. I think that's something as we struggle to evaluate WWE in 2018. It's no different. It's not like a 18 to 24 male is any better than a kid that's at the show.
Yeah.
I guess my point is that I think more impressive is that the lack of anti-Roman chants in that moment.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I noticed that about the chant a little bit, but I also think the crowd as a whole was a lot more behind him than they have been in recent months. Starting with that opening segment, I thought he was getting a pretty good reaction from the crowd.
Well, I mean, they booed him hard when he came out. I think it was a testament, actually, to Brock Lesnar being somewhat compelling. I mean, my God, I can't believe I'm saying it. But they actually had depth to his character. They didn't just have him standing there while Paul Heyman recites the same tired promo.
Yeah, I think the fans are conditioned to boo him now at this point. Whenever that theme song comes on. But he did a good job through that opening segment of getting them behind him.
I liked the promo a lot. Yeah, Roman's promo, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. But Brock, and the thing with Heyman is too, there's obviously a pretty substantial portion of the WWE audience that likes Paul Heyman, And I think Brock, kind of going so far as to, even heel on Heyman, it took him as a heel to a next level. I think that worked. That was a smart idea, whoever came up with that. But what was not a smart idea, or an audible that should have been called, and this was the problem I had with the end of Raw, is Brock lays out Angle, he's choking Heyman. There is the "We Want Roman" chant. If this is the Attitude Era, which was referenced earlier, Steve Austin's driving out on a Zamboni, man. And the crowd's getting what they want. Here we get Roman Reigns, castrated babyface, just listening to the Authority, and he doesn't come out. That's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, if they would have had to call an audible, because obviously I think this was the plan, but I don't think dangling that carrot is a bad thing either. I mean, if you're kind of starting to get the crowd wanting Reigns, just as well try and find out if you can carry that on to the next time, because I think Lesnar has one more appearance before SummerSlam.
The bottom line is he's getting booed in Brooklyn regardless, right? I mean, it's the idea that they're going to get the reaction that quote unquote they want, they meaning WWE, I think is still ludicrous. But I don't know. To me, it would have, if you do something cool with Roman and he, and you present him like a badass, which is how he should be presented. To me, that's something that should be done rather than just have him not come out, because it's just like, well, he listened to the Authority and he just went away. Steve Austin did not just go away. I mean, when Steve Austin was escorted from the building, he would always come back.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, I think Justin's onto something there. They're probably going by the mindset of that anticipation, building it up. But I don't think that really works with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, New Orleans. Yeah, allow me to answer with 2 words: New Orleans.
Exactly.
Okay,
that was my next point, because that's
we
what
all
they
thought they were turning the corner there in New Orleans, and then the 3 of us were sitting in that building, baby, and there wasn't no corner turn.
It's one of the castrations Roman Reigns has experienced. This guy's had a lot of balls cut off in the last couple years.
Still think he should win the match in less than 5 minutes.
I agree. Why not? Yeah, and as long as Strowman doesn't cash in right afterwards, which there's some talk on Monday night about why isn't Braun Strowman going to cash in tonight if Brock's there? Didn't happen, obviously, but
yeah, he kind of had said that, but I don't know.
I wouldn't have been completely against it, to be honest with you. I was thinking about this during the show, and obviously Brock and Roman is not going to go over well in Brooklyn. So my thought, I know they want to have Roman finally get this win over Brock, but they should have done a long time ago anyways. And I did have that thought run through my mind Monday night, like, why not just create some buzz, have him cash in, knock out Brock right now, and do Braun Roman on 2 weeks' notice at SummerSlam? Why not? What is there to lose at this point?
Because they want Roman to pin Brock Lesnar.
I know,
honest,
but
he kind of has to.
I know, but man, it's like worthless.
As much as it's like everyone's like, oh God, do this already. They need to do it.
I don't know if they need to do it. It's not really going to matter at this point, because, like you said, nobody cares. So I don't think the win means anything. It's just getting it over.
There is an argument. Yeah, I mean, it's. Who will it mean anything to? That is a good question, because I think even the people who do like Roman Reigns are kind of like just dreading the whole thing. Like, oh God, is he going to lose again? Like, yeah. I just don't see, and I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, that's good for WWE. I just don't see anyone really going crazy over this. It's just like, there's 2 schools of thought. We hate Roman Reigns, or God damn it, why didn't you do this already? There's no one who's like, yes, there's no one like, this is the time. I mean, there's been a lot of this is the times.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying is, like, I don't think anyone's really going to benefit in the long run, because even the people that want Roman to win, it's just going to be kind of like, okay, yeah, finally, it's about time. Should happen a long time ago. What's next? Like,
yeah,
he's not getting much of a rub from this match.
I only say that he needs to do it because Brock has been protected to the point that him losing should be a big deal, and they very clearly want that loss to occur to Roman Reigns. That's the story they've told. Whether it's a good story, whether it's a bad story, can be debated ad nauseum, but it's the story they want to tell. So they need to do it because they've, pussyfooted around for 3 years.
Yep. Should have happened months ago, but here we are. So,
years ago.
Yeah. So the only other thing on Raw that I thought was worth talking about is just that Rousey's going to be wrestling next Monday night on television against Alicia Fox. So
this one's for my husband.
Yeah. So they did announce the match against Alicia Fox. So it's going down next Monday, her first television match. And that's, well, let's see, next Monday will be just under 2 weeks from SummerSlam. So building up that match with Alexa Bliss. And I don't know, anything else from Raw to go over, guys?
Other than the Roman Rock stuff, I didn't think Raw was a huge thing. I don't know. Do I want to draw your guys' ire or not, actually, now that I think of something?
Oh, God. Do it.
I dare you.
Seth Rollins was very much in a Shawn Michaels, I want to get my shit in mood against Drew McIntyre. I thought. If you watch that match, I didn't think Seth wrestled that well, that match.
How dare you?
I've been very complimentary of Seth
Rollins.
Dare
you?
But I thought he was eating up McIntyre, and he needed to work that match differently.
Ryan, can you delete him from this chat? Is that possible?
Moving my cursor towards that red hang up button right about now.
Man, you got to be objective with these things. I don't cheer for guys. I cheer for the right way.
You can be a mark, man. You can be a mark.
Look, I think Seth Rollins has had a tremendous 2018. I don't know if he's kind of irritated because of the crowd in Pittsburgh for that Iron Man match. He did not wrestle he didn't wrestle appropriately, I think, in that match.
He should be irritated because if this company had a bit of sense, he'd be the guy beating Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Am I wrong?
Amen.
Am I wrong, Kyle?
I don't know.
You don't know? Come on. We've had this discussion before. Hottest babyface on Raw
there's an argument that he should be put in that spot, but I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Tomorrow, I'm going to eat some Taco John's, videotape it, and send it to you. I'm going to make you watch me eat Taco John's.
Look, Drew McIntyre is the guy that's going to be pushed in the fall. There's no doubt. I mean, he's been protected. He hasn't lost. And, Seth was just, it was like I said, it was a vintage Shawn Michaels performance. It was one of those, Shawn Michaels performances where Shawn went out there. He didn't really give a shit about the opponent. Shawn's like, you know what? I want to make sure everyone knows I'm really athletic and good, and fuck this other guy and fuck this match.
Let me just say, imagine thinking that saying somebody having a vintage Shawn Michaels performance is a bad thing.
Shawn Michaels could be very unprofessional at times.
No, yeah, that's true.
Okay, Shawn Michaels, just because he's a good wrestler, didn't mean that sometimes it wasn't he couldn't be a detriment to that company at times. There have been clear times where Shawn Michaels has turned in unprofessional performance.
I would say so, yes.
And Seth's wasn't, quite as, as much as we laugh about the Hogan match at SummerSlam 05, that was pretty unprofessional.
It was terrible. Yes, that was terrible.
Seth, it wasn't that ridiculous, but come on, man. Give Drew something. Don't just counter everything.
Yeah.
You're talking like he lost his smile or something. Granted, he lost his pants in a picture once, but he didn't lose his smile.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just one match. I don't know. I'm not saying that he's a bad wrestler. I'm just saying that I didn't think he worked that match smart.
Oh, man. I gotta say, Justin,
guys are not omnipotent.
I gotta say,
omnipotent wrestler.
Justin has been a little quieter on this episode, but when he came in with a comment, he's coming in full bore tonight, guys. He had the comment about Vladimir Putin having something to do with Nikolai Volkoff's death, a reference to the Seth Rollins nude photo leak. Well done, Justin. Well done.
Well, I mean, who doesn't think about that photo all the time?
Oh, on that note, moving on to SmackDown Live. SmackDown, the better show, I thought. I think there's some things we can nitpick on SmackDown. Maybe actually it's even more than nitpicking with Charlotte Flair, which we're going to get to here in a minute.
Charlotte Reigns.
Charlotte.
I think that's not her last name.
Let's just start with this. So Charlotte returned on the show, and Charlotte has now weaseled her way into the SummerSlam match, where she will now be competing against Becky Lynch and Carmella. It's now a triple threat. Some great reactionary shots in the back of Becky, pissed off to all hell that Charlotte is kind of stealing her thunder now after returning, and she's been gone for a while, and all of a sudden she finds herself now in the title match. So personally, as a fan and an analyst, I would rather see Becky Lynch wrestling Carmella one-on-one. I'd rather not have Charlotte in this match. So I think there's a good thread of realism in this story, and I think it's probably leading to Charlotte going heel eventually, which would be better anyway. She's a much better heel. But Kyle, you were pretty critical off air about this whole situation. So
I hope that's the story they're telling, because if not, man,
no, yeah.
I don't see how you Charlotte Flair comes across as likable in that situation.
No,
if that was
not.
Roman Reigns, okay, and Becky Lynch was one of your favorites, like Seth Rollins, okay, I'd have to hear about it till the cows came home.
Well, okay. I'm kind of confused. What did Charlotte do?
She was so Becky was like, they did a great job. And, Carmella, we talk about character-wise, she's great. They did a great job building up the idea of Becky Lynch versus Carmella one-on-one, okay? And then Charlotte kind of just apes her way into the title picture. And as a viewer, Ryan mentioned it, I'm sympathetic towards Becky. It's like, oh, Becky's like, I thought I was going to have this one-on-one opportunity. And my point is, if Charlotte was Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns returned and won his way into a triple threat where, again, one of the internet's favorites thought they're gonna have a one-on-one match, I would be hearing it till the cows came home, man.
Yeah. So Charlotte returned early in the show on SmackDown, and she did a run-in helping Becky Lynch from an attack by Carmella. And then she wrestled Carmella later in the show, won the match, which gave her the right to enter the women's title match at SummerSlam here in just over 2 weeks. So Becky clearly annoyed, didn't like it. I didn't like it either, like I said. But
I mean, if they're telling a story with it's almost like they kind of have to. I mean, and we've talked about this before. Okay, post Carmella title picture, the three main players will be Charlotte, Asuka, and Becky Lynch, right? Although Becky Lynch as a major player can be debated, because I don't think they're ever going to go all the way with her. All three are baby faces. Somebody has to turn, but there's talk that they may do horsewomen versus horsewomen down the line still.
Yeah. And
if that's the case, they can't turn Charlotte or Becky before that. So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
No, it's funny because my big takeaway from the whole angle was I fully expect Becky to be the one that to turn at SummerSlam after Carmella keeps the title. But I actually find this match far more intriguing. And this is coming as a Becky Lynch fan. This is far more intriguing to me than just a straight up Becky Lynch and Carmella match.
So we talked about this when the Becky match with Carmella, I think was it last week we talked about it. When this match was first announced, and we debated whether Becky would have a chance of being the person to dethrone Carmella, and we floated the idea that she could be a transition champion to Charlotte, which would involve a Charlotte heel turn, because wouldn't be likely to see babyface versus babyface with the title change. However, I do think there is a way with this story that they could really heat up Becky here if they wanted to go all in on her. And she's got a huge fan base. Like
She's
every
a really
week,
good babyface.
yeah, every week the crowd is going crazy for her. So I do see a situation where if you went all in, you could have Charlotte win the title at SummerSlam. They have some kind of interaction in the match that like Charlotte steals it from Becky. She goes heel, and then she taunts Becky, and Becky chases her for a couple months, maybe winning the title at Evolution. And if they did that with Charlotte fresh as a heel and Becky chasing, I could see Becky catapulting to be one of the top stars in the women's division right then and there, especially with a big time.
That's not a bad scenario if they do that. That's not. I would find that entertaining.
Yeah. So, but it comes down to what are their actual plans here for Becky Lynch? Because by then you're into October, going into November. We're getting closer to Mania season, and if they're going to do Charlotte Asuka again, that's going to complicate things there. But I do see a way that this could work out and really heat up Becky Lynch. So we'll see
my point was just that, like, as a viewer, if you're just thinking, like, I don't know, I just felt sympathetic towards Becky for the whole, and maybe you were supposed to. I mean, based on the reactions, they weren't going to have her, watch the big screen, I guess, if you weren't. But, I certainly wasn't, like, rooting for Charlotte Flair.
Yeah. So,
who, like you said, is a pretty lousy babyface, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, she's a terrible babyface. Great heel. So I'm just waiting on the heel turn. So
I just think that Charlotte, to be honest with you, a lot of the things the anti-Roman crowd projects on Roman, I think applies to Charlotte Flair.
I kind of had that going through my mind a little bit when I was watching her on Tuesday night, because we had a conversation, I believe that was off air, talking about you kind of allude to the fact you think Charlotte's overrated. And as I watched her wrestle, like, I do think Charlotte's really good, don't get me wrong. But I don't think she's, like, heads and shoulders above a lot of these other girls. And in fact, there's other girls that are just as good, if not better.
And it's very clear that they WWE, want her in the prime spot.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I just, it's funny how I think a lot of the criticism that Roman's hit with is not applied to her.
Right, like a legacy wrestler here with the blood lineage, like, oh, they're just giving them the spot because of who they are. Like, that certainly applies to her too. So yeah, that is a good point, because she kind of, in a lot of ways, is the female Roman Reigns. So
good thing that her last name's Flair, not Reigns.
There you go. Also on SmackDown, now I know, Justin, you probably were pretty happy with this one. We have the finals of the tag team title, number one contender, I should say, tournament next week, as The Bar, who have been absent from television for quite a long time, who were brought back. Yeah, who were brought back for this tournament. They defeated the Usos, so they will face the New Day next week on SmackDown. Winner faces the Treading Water Bludgeon Brothers for the tag team championships at SummerSlam. I was super happy that The Bar won personally, because when I look at the prospective matches, it's like, although the Usos and the New Day always have great matches, like, how many times have we seen that match? And this is at least a little bit fresh. And no, I'm glad to see The Bar there. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of tired of all. I'm still shocked that The Bar, New Day, and Usos all ended up on the same brand. I mean, granted, it's fresher than Usos New Day, but we have seen New Day and The Bar, multiple times going back to New Day's last tag title reign, and they're on Raw. But yeah, I'm just kind of lukewarm on the whole SmackDown tag scene right now.
Yeah, but the SmackDown tag scene is so much better than Raw. Could we agree?
Yeah.
Like, it's way deeper. Yeah, we've seen a lot of the matches before. This one we've seen it before, but it's been a lot longer. The Bar just hasn't been in the title picture in a long, long time. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. What do you think, Kyle?
I like any of the three contending teams, New Day, Usos, or Bar, better than the Bludgeon Brothers. I've been pretty adamant about that. In thinking about something we talked about last week, I don't think the Bludgeon Brothers are any fresher than any of those other three teams. Like, okay, yeah, we gave Harper and Rowan a new theme music and a new name, but it's still Harper and Rowan. I mean, they've been teaming up for years.
Yeah.
And I just think they're an inferior tag team than any of those other three. I do agree with what Justin said. The Usos probably could have moved to Raw. Because they've been on SmackDown since the start of the brand split. So they probably could have used a move to Raw. But I don't know. I thought the match was great, which is no surprise. 2 of the 10 best teams in WWE history.
It was a really, really good match. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the finish was kick ass. I don't know if it matters. I don't think are they going to do the Bar versus the Bludgeon Brothers? That seems like an odd matchup.
There's no way.
Yeah, it almost seems like they're going to I wonder if they're just going to go back to the New Day. I don't know. The Bludgeon Brothers I think they need to get the titles off them.
Yes,
is the bottom line. I don't care. I just prefer any of the three teams. To me, it was one of those things we dissect the booking so much. We have a wrestling podcast. I didn't actually care who won the Usos or the Bar, and I don't think I care who wins New Day Bar next week. I just would prefer one of those teams to beat the Bludgeon Brothers
as soon as possible.
Well, it'll be SummerSlam, but
yes.
Do you guys mind if I transition to something else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, this feels so dirty to say. It's
Where's this going?
It's disgusting.
Did you take a shit or?
No. I really like this whole Randy Orton Jeff Hardy thing. I think Randy Orton's doing some good stuff right now.
That was a good segment too. SmackDown was a good show. His attacks on Hardy have been very realistic, and I have no complaints. The heel turn's been great. I did like how he teased the RKO in that segment, got the crowd going crazy, and then didn't do it, just stared at him. That was good. That's
really good heel work. That's what a heel should do.
Yeah.
Good work by Randall Knox Orton.
At first, I was like, wait, what's he doing? And then I was like, oh, okay, here it comes. And then, yes, there was. It was great. So, no, that's been fantastic, too. I agree. SmackDown just has been the much better show of late. So, and then they closed out with that great Ms. Bryan segment, too, which was very good.
The Joe promo was good.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe is shockingly good on promos.
Oh yeah, he's one of the best in the company. The way he looks at the mic and he's super intense.
Yeah, but his delivery is just great.
I said the way he looks at the mic, the way he looks at the camera. Yeah. Great delivery.
I mean, it sucks that we don't have the Samoa Joe of 2018 on the mic meshed with the Samoa Joe of 2005 in the ring. I mean, my God, would that be one of the great wrestlers of all time?
Yeah. No,
so, never mind. We'll save it for the SummerSlam preview. I've just got some thoughts on, or some questions on Samoa Joe versus The Miz. As far as who's the hotter heel right now.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty good debate we could have. You want to save that for SummerSlam? We can go into it now.
I think we should save that for SummerSlam.
Okay, we'll save it. So 2 shows from now will be our SummerSlam preview.
Put that in your back pocket as long as you're wearing pants.
As long as you're not Seth Rollins, right?
Okay, we do have 2 weeks. For some reason, I was thinking SummerSlam was 2 Sundays from now. It's 3 Sundays from now, right?
It's the week after next.
It's the 19th, and
this Sunday is the 5th. So
so next week is not a SummerSlam preview show. Actually,
2 weeks.
Okay, it's not the go home stuff next week. It's 2 weeks. Okay, well, okay,
yeah,
which makes sense because it feels like they're holding stuff back on this card.
Yeah, a little bit. They certainly held back Miz and Bryan, which hasn't been confirmed, but is obviously happening. And their segment closed SmackDown, and Miz was not there. He was talking about his reality show. He said he was on the set of his reality show, which was kind of a weird line, but he was on the set of his reality show, promoting the fact that it was they call it the most watched reality show on USA Network in like 7 years or something like that. Didn't hurt that it came on right after SmackDown. Got a lot of the wrestling fans to stay tuned in.
That's a good get for Miz, man.
Yeah, and then
that show's going to do better than it probably ought to. Yeah, just because it comes right after SmackDown.
And this week they were rerunning before SmackDown last week's show of the Miz and Mrs. So that was also very smart on their part. And Bryan came out to the ring. It was just a promo segment with Bryan going back and forth and the Miz on the screen. And the Miz kind of hinting that Bryan is scared of him, and he's not the old Bryan anymore. He's not the Daniel Bryan of WrestleMania 30. And Bryan saying the Miz is scared of him. Why don't you come out here? The Miz talked about how this isn't the Indies. You can't just call me out and I'll come out and we'll fight. You have to go through his agent, which was a pretty good heel line. And no, he denied him the match. Bryan was very disappointed. Obviously, we're going to get it, but they're going to drag it out a little bit longer before we get the match confirmed. What did you guys think of this segment? Go ahead, Kyle.
I thought it was very good. Yeah, I mean, it was. We are going to get it, and their house show matches have all been well received, so it'll probably end up being the best thing on SummerSlam.
Yeah, the Miz did get a line in during the promo about how Bryan should just go ahead and not re-sign, which was an interesting insider reference there, which we've talked about on the show. Bryan still has not re-signed with WWE. Contract ends September 1st.
Yeah, there's been some debate. I mean, some people said he signed a 3-month extension. Meltzer said that wasn't true. So, yeah, we don't know. They're going to maybe keep us in the dark for that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, yeah, in-ring wise, I'm thinking it's probably going to be the highlight of the show, right? Am I missing something? That could be what
Joe
else could be?
Joe and Styles will be a great
That's
match.
true. Joe and Styles could be. But yeah, this is what the people want. This is, ever since Bryan came back and Miz was moved to SmackDown, this is precisely what the people want. They're giving it to him finally.
Yeah.
A lot better than what Bryan's done before. Last couple months.
Yeah, I dug it. I wasn't a fan of the babies crying on the screen, and maybe that's just because I'm, a new father who has like the 1,000-yard stare whenever I hear a child crying right now.
I'm like mentally preparing myself to deal with that again here in a couple of months when baby number 2 arrives. I'm having a hard time remembering how I functioned that first year, and going back through that again a second time is going to be another eye-opening experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. You don't function, you survive.
Yeah, it's like I think back now and I'm like, I don't even remember, how did I go to work? And then it's like, well, I can barely remember working during that period, so that probably says something. Yeah, so I'll be right there with you guys here pretty soon. And that was, I agree, that was a little odd at the end when all these crying not baby faces as in good guys, but literal faces of babies popped up on the screen over and over and over again. Miz taunting Bryan as a crybaby. That was a little bit a little too kooky for me, but overall the segment was good.
Yeah, especially with how naturally this feud has come together to have something that contrived. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah. So yeah, a good set of television tapings this week. I thought overall everything.
TV tapings, is this 1994 WCW or?
I always call them TV tapings. Yeah. That's what I always call them. But yeah, definitely SmackDown was better than Raw. But there's some memorable stuff on both shows. But if I had to watch them a second time on repeat viewing, no question, it would be SmackDown. Most of SmackDown was all very good. So. The other thing I did want to mention this week is I had a chance to attend some of the proceedings at the George Tragos Luthez Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame here in Waterloo, Iowa over the weekend, which was a very notable event because of the fact that Owen Hart was inducted. into the Hall of Fame alongside Dan Severn. Were the two inductees this year. There's some other people there getting awards, notably
Off
Booker
again,
T.
on again rivals on 1998 WWF television.
Yeah, that's true. Dan Severn, Owen Hart. I actually had a chance to talk with Dan Severn a little bit at the indie wrestling show that I went to on Friday night, which was the night before the actual Hall of Fame proceedings, which I did not get to attend, but I've been to in the past. And just the whole weekend, we've talked about on the show before. We want to get Kyle back here, maybe next year to Iowa to go to the Hall of Fame weekend. It's just a really cool experience for wrestling fans, especially longtime fans, because you're in this medium-sized city in Iowa, and you have these legends all over the place, and just super accessible. Like, if I went down the list of who was just standing around at the Impact Pro Wrestling indie show on Friday night, J.J. Dillon was there. Severn I mentioned. Jerry Briscoe was there. Tony Gurria was there. The entire let's see.
Did he break up any brawls? I feel that would have been very appropriate if there was a brawl during a match and Tony Gurria hopped the rail to break it up.
That's what being my age, I think of him more as the guy at ringside versus the wrestler. But yeah, that's true.
Him and Martel were a great team.
Colt Cabana was here. CM Punk's good buddy, who just defeated WWE in a lawsuit a few weeks back. Booker T, I mentioned he was there. Diana Hart was there. Davey Boy Smith Jr. was there. Who else? Keith Hart, Ross Hart, Bruce Hart. Yeah, a lot of legends of the sport. Oh, and the Revival from WWE were also there. So a lot of big, and that's not even everybody. So by all accounts, the banquet on Saturday was a really emotional event with the Hart family accepting Owen's induction. So this is the only Wrestling Hall of Fame that Owen is in. And I don't know if he'll ever get in the WWE Hall of Fame. But a lot of wrestlers, I wrote this in my article on comicbook.com, a lot of wrestlers feel that the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame is the most legitimate pro wrestling Hall of Fame, because they do have a voting body that decides who goes in every year. You do have to have some credentials as a real athletic star, or at least some background in real athletics outside of pro wrestling, to be inducted into the hall. So for Owen, he was a very good amateur wrestler before entering pro. I think he even wrestled in college, if I'm not mistaken, in Alberta. And of course, Dan Severn, UFC star, so it makes sense. And so, yeah, it's always a great weekend. Got to give a shout out to Kyle Klingman there. He's the director of the Dan Gable Museum, where the Tragos Thez Hall is. He's always been great for me. I've been covering that Hall of Fame, I think, going back to 2006. And he always does whatever he can to accommodate the media, and he always gives me great access to talking to the wrestlers and doing what I need to do to cover the show. Like I said, I wrote up an article on Comic Book about it. And yeah, maybe we can get Kyle on the show sometime, talk about the Hall. That might be an interesting guest. So, Kyle, I hope we can get you out here next summer to go to the 2019. Not the same
Kyle that you just referenced.
No, Kyle Klingman is the director, but Kyle Ross here on Top Rope Nation, I hope we can get you to return to Iowa sometime to go to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, well.
I know you have some interest.
Get me 6-pack and a pound, and I'll be out there.
There is a Taco John's not too far away, so.
Oh, God, I'm salivating.
So, a good weekend. Great to see Owen get recognized. And you guys.
And by the way, that's totally Martha's call. People who are mad,
yeah,
it doesn't matter whether or not you agree with Martha Hart. It's her call. She thinks the WWE is culpable in Owen Hart's death. And if she feels that way, then he's not going in. And that's totally within her right, whether you agree with it or not.
Right. She doesn't want the company to monetarily benefit off of her husband. And if at the Hall of Fame show that the WWE does, obviously they make a lot of money off of it. So that's the big objection there. Now with the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame, it's not something that's bringing in millions of dollars. So I'm sure she wouldn't have had a problem with this one. She was not in attendance. None of Owen's 2 children were not there either. It was all his brothers and sisters from the Hart family and his nephew, Davey Boy Jr., or Harry Smith, that was there. So do you have a thought on Owen there, Justin?
I think it's cool that he, made a Hall of Fame. personally, I think it's dumb that she won't allow him to go into WWE. I get where you guys are coming from, saying that it's her right, but I don't like. He put in so much work there, and to keep him out of the eyes and the hearts of the fans like that. It's just odd to me. It just seems bitter, I guess. Well, fuck. I guess I can't blame her for it. Whatever. Ignore me.
Yeah, the feud that her and Brett have been having about this in recent weeks has been something to watch, and I understand why she wouldn't want her husband, her late husband, I should say, to go in the Hall of Fame. I get where Brett's coming from too. I guess the thing that bothered me the most, though, about what Brett said about the whole situation is how Owen's kids have like no relationship at all with the Hart family, and that Brett said if he walked past Owen's two now grown children on the street, he wouldn't even recognize them. That's really sad stuff. Like, I don't know why she's pulled back from the rest of the family like that. So that was kind of hard to read.
Yeah, it is, again. But, to me, I'm not going to, tell someone how to behave. That's not my place. I think, like, I can celebrate, like, as a fan, like, for you guys, does your appreciation of a wrestler really get affected by whether or not they're in the WWE Hall of Fame?
No, I mean,
but it's not just about the Hall of Fame. It's about all the other stuff they could do. Like, they could make special documentaries and stuff about them. It's not, for me, it's not the Hall of Fame at all. It's that they can't talk about him at all.
Well, they did come out with a documentary on him, though. Well, two, I guess. They had the Hart family one, and then they did have the Owen DVD.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, to me, I can celebrate, like, I can watch Owen Hart matches, and it's like, this guy's really fucking good. And
yeah.
To me, it's not like, Mark Henry, I think made a pretty emotional plea at the last Hall of Fame, and there's arguments too, but to me, it's Martha Hart's call, and if she doesn't want it, okay, fine. I guess, like, we can't get a bunch of, like, people in Road Triples each and Owen, but that doesn't really, I don't think that outweighs how she feels.
Yeah, I think the big thing for fans is they want to see him get that recognition on the big stage one more time, and but Martha is well within her rights to not want to see it happen. And, if I went through what she went through and what happened with Owen was, to me, like the biggest tragedy in the history of pro wrestling. Should have never happened. It should have never been in that situation. I don't know how you get over that. And so it's hard to tell her how she should feel, for sure, because she lost the love of her life, who did something that he should have never been in the position to have to do. So difficult situation, but it's great to see him get honored at least at the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame. And when it comes to the two Hall of Fames, like, this one is more legitimate, no doubt about it. The people in the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame are legit Hall of Famers with athletic backgrounds. They're not people that are just handpicked by Vince McMahon to go in the Hall of Fame. So it's a legitimate hall. He got honored. Very cool.
Well, it's a vote of one for the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Tragos Thez, like, they have this whole committee. I think everyone that's been inducted has a vote, and then they have another committee too. So they meet and they do the voting every year, and they send out the ballots. And some years they've had more than two inductees, but just the two this year. And then they always have some other awards too that they give out. There's a journalism award, which Meltzer's got before, Wade Keller's got before. Wade Keller was there too, by the way. Bruce Mitchell was there.
Yeah.
I think Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net was there. So a lot of people were here for the show, and very cool to see. So before we roll out this week, I do want to mention that we kind of have a partner now on Top Rope Nation. And
we do?
We do. I don't even know if I've told you guys about this, but many of you listening have maybe heard of Wrestle Rumble. Wrestle Rumble, every WWE pay-per-view, they do a contest. I think it's like $5. You can buy an entry. And then they have like a whole list of all this stuff that's going to possibly happen on the pay-per-view show. You pick who's going to win each match. You pick if different weapons are going to be used in each match, how long they're going to be. It's very difficult, but it's fun to do. Gives you something to watch for on the pay-per-view shows. And then they always have prizes. And I've seen them give away replica title belts. I've seen them give away tickets to pay-per-views. I've seen them give away hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's different for every show. I'm not sure what their SummerSlam prizes are going to be yet. I'm on their website right now, not seeing that listed. But they did just have an Extreme Rules contest a few weeks ago. So, yeah, WrestleRumble.com, they're a new partner of the show. We'll be talking about them heading into SummerSlam. And if you've never done it before, I would strongly encourage you to maybe just try out an entry for $5 or whatever you want to do to try to win some money. It looks like at Extreme Rules, the first place took home $500. Second place was $100. Third place was $100. Give away big time money for guessing what's going to happen on the pay-per-view show. So shout out to Wrestle Rumble. I'll be mentioning them on our SummerSlam preview show here in a couple weeks. So,
fuck, are we eligible? $500? I'll take it.
No, we're eligible. I've entered it multiple times. So,
well, you have.
I have not won, but I will keep trying. So it's kind of like fantasy wrestling, I guess you could say. And you get a new chance every single month. So, on that note, again, I mentioned at the top of the show, if you didn't have a chance, check out our Top Rope Nation Classics show, which reviewed SummerSlam 91. We had a great time reviewing that show the other night, guys, and I think it's a pretty good listen. In the future, those classic shows are all going to be only on Patreon, so if you go to patreon.com/TopRopeNation, you can see how you can access those shows moving forward. All the benefits that come with being a patron of the Top Rope Nation are available there, and we are looking forward to reviewing more classic shows. It really gets Kyle jacked up. He was all day long, even today he was jacked up from that show last night.
I started just talking about SummerSlams to myself all day, to be honest with you. I put the mic on and I didn't have to hit record. I was just sitting at my desk talking randomly about SummerSlam history. I was so motivated.
I'm looking at at 6:50 a.m. this morning. And we recorded last night, Top Rope Nation Classics. He says,
well, it's 7:50 for me.
Yeah. He says, who wants to talk about another SummerSlam right now? All caps. He was jacked. It was fun. It was a good time. Check it out on all your podcast feeds and then in the future at patreon.com.
Full disclosure, I never slept. I just started doing cocaine after the show. That's why.
No, I actually really had a hard time falling asleep last night, which is kind of.
I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say full disclosure. I did cocaine too. I was like,
no, but I had a hard time getting to sleep last night.
Like you should have called me. We would have talk about the worst SummerSlams at 3 a.m, just gibberish and hit record.
Damn it! Turn on SummerSlam 95 right now.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We will be back next week with episode. What will be next week? Episode 69 of Top Rope Nation. I believe episode 69 of Top Rope Nation next week, and we'll have another classic show coming at you on Patreon very soon. So, on that note, we hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy whatever pro wrestling you enjoy. There's a lot of it out there.
Love this sport.
Talk to you later.